From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Okay, we're gonna do it like this. Say hey. All right. All right. There it keeps playing. Okay, there we go. And I'm on mic, so everybody hears me.
All right, let's go. Hi, I'm Marisa Bellack. I'm an editor at The Washington Post, which is a charter sponsor of the book festival. And I'm pleased to have a conversation today with Angie Thomas, author of the best-selling young adult novel, The Hate You Give. I think most of you know something about her, but I will do a quick introduction before we start talking here. Angie was born in the Georgetown neighborhood of Jackson, Mississippi, which she describes as one of the poorest neighborhoods in the poorest state in the country. Growing up, she says she imagined a local crack den as a dragon lair, and she wished for superhero speed to avoid getting caught in gunfire. The Hate You Give began as a short story that Angie wrote during her senior year at Belhaven University. And she says it was inspired by the shooting of Oscar Grant in Oakland in 2009. But Angie was actually focused pitching an upper middle grade superhero novel.
Totally different.
In 2015, when she asked a literary agent via Twitter what he thought of a YA book about the Black Lives Matter movement. Things moved pretty quickly after that. In October 2015, Angie was the inaugural winner of the Walter Dean Myers Grant for We Need Diverse Books. In February 2016, The Hate You Give was acquired by HarperCollins' Balzer and Bray imprint in a 13 publishing house auction. In March 2016, Fox 2000, Temple Hill and State Street acquired the film rights, with Hunger Games actress Amandla Steinberg slated to star and George Tillman Jr. to direct. And the book was published last February to rave reviews. I'm sure Angie will talk about some of that wild ride today.
Yes.
Before we dive in, I'm supposed to mention that the Library of Congress has been the festival's host since it began 17 years ago. I want to thank the co-chairman of the festival, David Rubenstein, and the many National Book Festival sponsors who made this event possible. You can support the festival with a donation. There's information in your programs. Please note, too, that there'll be time for questions after we have a conversation here.
Just don't ask me for movie roles.
And anyone who asks a question will be filmed for the Library of Congress's archive. There will be microphones in each aisle. So now please help me welcome Angie Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I really am.
So let's just start off. Why did you do this as a YA?
First of all, no offense to any adult writers or adults in general, but I think adult books are boring. I can't see myself writing for adults, and the reason I really say that is because teenagers are much more open-minded than adults. And especially with a subject like this, I felt like I would get more empathy out of teenagers than I would adults. And then so many times with these cases, we're talking about young people. Trayvon Martin, teenager. Michael Brown, teen. Tamir Rice, 12. So when young people see these cases, they're affected by it. I know that there were kids in my neighborhood who looked at Tamir and saw themselves. So I wanted to write it for them. But yeah, the big thing was I just can't see myself writing for adults. It's amazing to me that adults have picked it up and have been drawn to it. But I was not thinking about y'all when I wrote this book.
So I understand you had a short-lived career as a rapper.
Short.
And so I wondered, is there something similar about writing YA and writing rap lyrics in that the rap's biggest audience is that kind of 18 to 24-year-old segment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We do not give hip-hop enough credit for giving so many young people a window to see themselves or a mirror into a world they wouldn't know of. You wouldn't know about half the stuff that happened in Compton, California, if it was not first for NWA. You may not have liked how they said it. It may have made you uncomfortable, but this is fact. And so when books were not providing mirrors and windows, hip hop did. I know for me it did. So when I did not see myself, you know, no offense to Twilight, I have nothing against Twilight, but I know had that been me, first of all, my mama wouldn't have let me date nobody that old. So, and then with the Hunger Games, you know, when I was a teenager, the Hunger Games were big. Nothing against it. I love the Hunger Games, but had that been me, when I raised my hand, my mom would have brought it down and said, no, I got this. And it would have been called Mama Won't Let You Go Hungry Games. That's a whole different book. So it was hard for me to see myself in those popular books, but I saw myself in hip hop. When Tupac said, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, the darker the flesh, the deeper the roots, I give a holler to my sisters on welfare, Tupac cares if don't nobody else care, he spoke to me. More than books did. So I think we need to give more props to hip hop for doing that for kids. And I hope to, yeah. Now don't get me wrong, the criticism, it's rightfully criticized. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But I look at the positive rappers like Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole, they're doing the good work. So I'm gonna pay homage to that in my second book, Promo.
Well, clearly music had a big influence on this book as well, right? So we have the title, which comes from Tupac's Thug Life.
Yes.
But you also tell us about what is playing on the car when your characters get in the car, what's playing at a party.
I just have to show my sock. I doubt anybody can see it. I got on Tupac socks. I doubt you can see that, but I do, because I have to take Pac with me everywhere.
Those are nice.
Thank you.
So there's characters in your book that are named after the members of Jadesi, and I know you posted a playlist of artists that have inspired let's talk a little bit about the influence of music in the writing of this book.
I always, whenever I write anything, I start with a playlist. I know with this book, Tupac was a huge influence in a lot of different ways. Of course, there's the title. It comes from his Thug Life tattoo. So yes, that U is on purpose, grammar nerds. It spells out thug. It comes from Thug Life. And that stood for the hate you give little infants F's everybody. And he said that means that what society feeds into youth has a way of affecting us all. So Tupac was influenced in that sense. Also, the character of Maverick is influenced by Tupac. And then just music, honestly, because I saw myself so much in hip hop and in music more than I did in books at times, I couldn't help but be affected by it. So as I'm writing, yeah, I may mention songs. I'm probably doing it a little too much now in this second book. I don't think my editor is going to be happy, but that's okay. But I think, honestly, books and music, they tell stories. They're forms of storytelling. And honestly, for me, it's hard to avoid using music in a way as an influence as I write. So it happens naturally, and I apologize in advance to the people who have to clear lyrics at HarperCollins.
So people might expect a book like this to focus on the distrust between African American communities and the police, but you also have a lot in there about anti-snitch culture. You have about gang recruitment pressures. Do you see those as kind of just as constraining, or kind of they're all part of the same story? Well,
honestly, when I wrote this book, and I knew going in that it would be a Black Lives Matter focused book, I knew somebody somewhere would say, well, what about black on black crime? I addressed it, there you go. We're talking about two separate issues here. And yeah, it's an important issue to bring up too. And I felt like though, I wanted to show, yeah, all of the issues that take place in my neighborhood, in neighborhoods like mine. But still, like I said, they're two separate things. And I wanted to show that even through Star and her trauma. She has two very separate, different things that have happened in her life. One was the case of black on black crime with her friend Natasha. Khalil was a case of police brutality. Two things that affected her in two very different ways, yet similar. So I hope that by showing that, two different things, but they still have an effect. Yeah, I address black on black crime, but yeah, can we still pay attention to what's happening in our communities as far as police brutality goes?
Let's talk. So let's talk about Star a little bit. You mentioned that Oscar Grant had a big influence on this book. And the movie Fruitvale Station, which is a very powerful movie, tried to give a fuller picture of his life. So can you talk about your decision to focus on the witness rather than the victim of a shooting, the direct victim of a shooting?
That decision was actually influenced by Trayvon Martin. When Trayvon Martin was killed, right before it happened, he was on the phone with a young lady by the name of Rachel Gentile. And when Rachel went to speak on Trayvon's behalf, basically, in the trial against George Zimmerman, there was more focus on how Rachel said things as opposed to what Rachel was saying. The media, they tore that girl apart. The people tore that girl apart. I read so many articles about, well, she should be more professional, or she should be this, she should be that. Why are we not paying attention to what this girl is saying? Why are we focused on how she's saying it? She sounds just like the girls from my neighborhood, yeah, and they may not be the most polished, but she's telling the truth. Why aren't we listening? So with Star, I kind of felt like Star was my response. Here's a young lady, young black girl from the hood, and she's gonna say it the way you think she should say it, but are you still listening? That's the question.
So one thing that struck me about Star is that she almost has two different voices within the book, depending on who else she's with. Can you talk about how you developed those voices? I mean, is it almost like thinking about two different characters, or do you try to carry certain things through?
I'm doing it right now. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. If I got up here and started saying finna and stuff like that, because I'm Southern, y'all would be like, what in the world is wrong with her? So code switching. Code switching for so many of us is a survival tactic, because there's this idea that if you speak a certain way, all of a sudden you're considered ignorant. With Star, I wanted to show a young lady who does code switch because so many of us go through that. But then there were two characters that I wanted to show different sides to it with, and that's her uncle and her dad. Maverick, her dad, the former gang member, he says, aight. Her uncle Carlos, the cop, all right. I look at them like Will and Carlton in The Fresh Prince. So her dad would be more Will and her uncle is Carlton. But guess what? They're still both intelligent black men. They have very important roles in her life. And just because Maverick speaks different from Carlos does not mean he's any less intelligent than Carlos. He's very intelligent. So I wanted to show, yes, this young girl who is living these two different lives, having to be two different people, having to change the way she speaks. But I also wanted to show these two guys who speak differently, present themselves differently, but they're still strong black men. And I've had a lot of young kids, especially young black girls, who've come up to me and said, thank you for having Star's code switch. I've been accused of sounding white. And I just want to put this out there. I don't care how you speak. The way you speak does not determine your blackness. And I wish we could get more people to realize that. So that was from my black folks. Y'all know where I'm coming at with that. So I wanted to address that with this character and show the struggle that so many of us deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Do you think having a character who moves between different worlds also helps you relate to your audience differently? I mean, then you're not just writing for people from the neighborhood you grew up in.
Yeah, I think so. I think it has allowed, first of all, it's shown people that all black kids in the hood don't just stay in the hood. You know, sometimes they get bused to schools across town, if nothing else. But her school environment, yeah, I wanted other readers to be able to connect, but it wasn't as much a priority as it was to write for those kids who are like Star, who are sometimes the only black kid in their class or in their school, and the pressure that is, you know, the pressure that comes with that. That was me. I went to a mostly white private school in Jackson, Mississippi, conservative Jackson, Mississippi. I just said a mouthful. A private Christian school at that. And so for me, I had to code switch. I would leave the house blasting Tupac, but by the time I got to my school, I was playing the Jonas Brothers.
You pulled your pants down?
Yeah. Yeah, I pulled my pants down. So that was me. That was my life. And I had to deal with, when slavery is discussed in class, everybody's looking at me like I was there. I had to deal with that. So I wanted to write for those kids that I know who are going through this and who are dealing with it. But yeah, like you said, it was a good way to connect with the readers who maybe go to the private school like Star. And maybe they'll see the stars in their school and they'll look at them differently and realize just because where they're from does not determine who they are.
Can you talk a little bit about how you've become a voice for greater diversity in fiction? Look at these people. It's one thing to count up Black characters in books, how many include a prominent Black character, and it's another for readers to really find characters who sound like them or think like them. I know we spoke about this a little bit before, that you found you saw yourself in hip hop more than in books themselves. Do you think that's changing, or what sort of conversations have you had about that since you've been on your book tour?
Oh yeah, I think it's changing. We Need Diverse Books, first of all, is doing incredible work. Shout out to them. And we are starting to see changes. I hope we will see more changes. Because there was a study that came out that showed that there were more books one year released about animals and trucks than there were about Black kids, Latino kids, Asian kids, Native American kids. Are you kidding me? So hopefully we will start seeing those changes. And the conversations are not that easy, though. This is the thing we're coming to see. You have the question of, well, who can write what? And I tell people, you can write whatever you want to write because you're going to do it anyway, but if you're writing outside of your own experience, don't get mad if you get criticized about it. We ask you to put in the work and do it right. So many of us have been already harmed by bad representation in books. And the last thing I want, especially as a children's book author, is for a kid to pick up my book and for them to be harmed by what they see. So the discussions are messy, the discussions are hard, but they're necessary, and hopefully we will see changes, and hopefully in 5 years there will be more books about children of color than there are about animals and trucks.
I know you've been speaking a lot to school groups since the book came out. Can you talk about some of the interesting things you've heard from students from those conversations?
Students who are surprised that their teachers let them read this book because of the cursing in it. But the best conversations are always when the students who tell me, thank you for this because I see myself, or when I was in Philly not too long ago and there's this young boy, Black boy, sagging pants, comes up to me and he's like, yo, Ma, and I'm like, he's like, yo, he said, I don't like reading. He said, but I read this in a day, this is dope. And I'm like, so when I hear that, when I have kids send me messages on Instagram saying, I hated reading until I read your book, that's amazing to me. And what I'm seeing now is those teachers are contacting me saying, my reluctant readers are tearing this 400-something page book apart. That's amazing. So I think what it's shown me, if nothing else, is if we give kids the books that they want to see themselves in, they'll read. And I recently had to tell my publisher, HarperCollins, I said, look, you guys failed me as a kid. You didn't give me enough books to see myself in. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you, I think the reason is because you assume that Black kids don't read. And that's a lie. Not to brag, but my book's been #1 for a while now. Black kids are reading it too. So having those conversations with students and with teachers shows me we do need more diverse books. We need to get these books into these kids' hands because those same kids that you think will not read will read if you give them something that they are interested in.
So we're here today celebrating books, of course,
Yes.
but can you tell us anything about the movie?
I'm looking straight at my film agent. She's here. The movie filming begins September 11th in Atlanta, Georgia. Everyone has been cast. Not everyone has been announced. I cannot tell you everything. But I am excited about it. It's funny because right before my signing, I got a call from the director His name is George Tillman. George Tillman is known for doing the movie Soul Food, Barbershop. He did Luke Cage, and he did This Is Us. So brother's got his credentials, you know. So he just called me a while ago just to ask me some questions about the character King. It's small stuff, but in the bigger picture, it matters. And what it shows me how dedicated he is to getting this right. I've been involved along the way. I don't cast movies. I have no say over casting. And there are some things that are still out of my control, but the script is amazing. And it does the book justice. And what I tell people is movies for books are a lot like fraternal twins. No, they're not going to look exactly the same, but they're going to be similar. And it gets to the heart of it, and it gets it right. So I think everybody's going to enjoy it. The entire team is dedicated to it. They're doing a great job, and I can't wait to visit set.
So let's open for questions. Find your way to the mics, and we can alternate sides.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm also from Jackson, Mississippi.
Hi.
And I found out about your book from my 12-year-old niece.
Oh, wow.
And Mississippi has such a great history of great authors, from William Faulkner to Richard Wright. I'm just wondering what the impact of your book has been in Jackson and in Mississippi, and the reception of it, and when is it going to be required for all school children to read it?
Thank you so much. It's so funny. Like, no matter where I go, there's always one person from Mississippi. Never fails. I was in Australia the other day, and there was this lady. She was like, "I'm from Mississippi," and I was like, "Really?" So it never fails. So thank you so much for coming and for asking. The impact in Jackson and in Mississippi. I was surprised recently to find out that the governor and the lieutenant governor even know who I am. They gave me a shout out at the Mississippi Book Festival. I've been able to visit a couple of schools back home, and I haven't been able to do a lot because of my schedule, but it's opened up some conversations. And I've gone to both public schools that are all black, and I've gone to the private schools that are all white. And both have told me that this book is opening their kids' eyes and stuff. And then, you know, it's always funny because the students are like, "So is this based on my school or is it based on that school? Because I think it's that school." You know, that's always fun. But and recently over 750 ninth graders, all the ninth graders in the Jackson Public School District were given free copies of the book. So that's amazing. And there are efforts right now to make it a school district-wide read for the 8th through 12th graders, not the younger kids, of course. But yeah, it's been interesting. You know, it's gotten to the point, like sometimes I go to Kroger and somebody knows me, so so I have to be careful about how I go out now. But and seeing the reaction, and when I have signings at the Mississippi Book Festival, and my line is both black and white, old and young, and I have people with the thick Southern drawls telling me, "Thank you for this book. I understand why they say Black Lives Matter now." When you get that in Mississippi, where our flag sucks, that's amazing. So it gives me hope for my state.
Hi, I'm a teacher, a new teacher actually, day 10.
Awesome.
Under my
Thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I wanted to know what recommendations you have for addressing the issues you address in your book with young people in an educational setting, working with 6-year-olds, so maybe not just handing them your book, but any recommendations generally for that?
I think when you're talking about kids that young, the biggest thing to instill in them right now is that empathy is more powerful than sympathy. Get that in them now. Help them feel for others. You know, my whole goal with this book was that after someone reads it, when they see Tamir Rice, instead of just saying, I'm sorry that happened, I want them to look at Tamir Rice and say, that could have been my little brother. I'm heartbroken by that. So that's what I want with the book. So I say instill empathy in them. And then not just empathy for people who look like them. Go beyond themselves. So I think there may be some books. I know there are books coming out that address it for younger readers. I'm going to tweet about it if you follow me on Twitter. But yeah, I think at the core of it, just instilling empathy, that'll go a long way. I promise it will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I just first wanted to really thank you because of this book, I understand these issues so much more than I would have just observing in my own community where it's not really as prevalent. And I wanted to ask if there's that scene towards the end of The Hate U Give with that really intense and exhilarating protest, and I sped through that in like 10 minutes. I could not put it down. Where exactly did you get the inspiration for that? Was it personal?
That was definitely inspired, not just by Ferguson, but protests around, even the protests in Oakland. And a lot of it also was inspired by the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Actually, it's funny because that's when Tupac started talking about thug life. Back in 1992, the Rodney King verdict had just happened, and also there was a young lady by the name of Latasha Harlan who was killed in a store when she didn't apparently pay for a bottle of juice and the store owner killed her. And it led to a lot of unrest in Los Angeles, and that cost Los Angeles a lot of money, and Tupac was like, that's thug life. So I remember looking at those riots. I was young, I'm not gonna say how young when that happened, but I remember watching footage on that and just seeing how, like Tupac said, the hate that was given into that little infant, Latasha, screwed the entire city of Los Angeles and the entire state of California. So those riots definitely inspired it, and the riots in Ferguson and protests and all of that inspired it. And I wanted to show, honestly, at the end of the day, why people are so angry that they were willing to burn down their own communities. It's easy to look on the outside and say, oh, they're just being ignorant, no, but look at the why. Why would I be angry enough to burn down the only grocery store in my neighborhood? Why? Why are people hurt? So at the end of the day, yeah, it was inspired by LA and it was inspired by Ferguson, but really the inspiration was getting to the heart of the matter and showing people the why.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm a teacher as well.
Hi.
And I teach high school, and I want to thank you for your book, and I do plan on using it in my classes.
Thank you.
And I've been recommending it left and right to my students. But my question is, you had talked about code switching as far as mainly the language and dress and that sort of thing. But one of the things in your book that I found particularly interesting, and there's a lot I found interesting, but this was one thing, was how her relationship with her friends in both communities. In the school community, however, you had her choose to have a white boyfriend, and she had trouble really confiding in him about what happened. So can you talk a little bit about that and the reactions of her friends to what had happened to her?
Yeah, sure. It's funny. Chris is one of those characters that gets brought up so much. Chris is probably the character I get asked about the most on Instagram as far as who's playing Chris in the movie. Apparently there's a lot of Chris love. Star and Chris, I've also had people who say, why didn't you put her with a black boy? First, I'm going to tell y'all now, I do get black love in my second book. For all the folks that are mad at me about the white boy. But as a writer, honestly, I look at sometimes for drama, and I thought, this girl is going through this situation that's so racially charged. Why not give her a white boyfriend and see how this goes? But with Chris, I also wanted to show with that character what it means to be an ally, a real ally. That word gets thrown around a lot, especially nowadays. And I wanted to show somebody, he's not perfect, he learns along the way. But guess what? The most important thing is he starts listening. That's what I really wanted him to do. I wanted him to listen to Star. And that's what I think allies should do. They should listen more. So with that character and that couple, I wanted to explore that. And then I wanted to show these two kids. At the end of the day, they're kids. They're in love all. So how do they survive this? How do they let something as heated as racial issues, how do they get over that? How do you do it? And then I wanted to show two kids who come to realize color blindness is not where it's at. We say that people think color blindness is good. There's nothing wrong with looking at me and seeing that I'm black. It's what you do once you see that. And so with them, I wanted to explore. Chris does have a couple of times, he's like, I don't see you as black, I see you as star. She's like, but I am black. So he comes to see, there's nothing wrong with accepting her blackness. There's nothing wrong with her looking at him and seeing his whiteness. Like I said, it's what they do once they see that. So with those two, it was a way to explore multiple things, and honestly, it also gave drama, if nothing else, with Maverick.
A lot of people seem to be addressing themselves with their jobs, so I'm a social worker.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
I've also been recommending your book. I work with a lot of adolescent boys and women as well. So my question is actually about your character, Haley.
Oh.
Right. So I'm curious about your own experiences with the bullies in the world, and I'm also curious about if you've had a lot of reactions, especially from white people, saying, but I understand Haley's point of view. She wasn't so terrible.
I haven't gotten that, but I don't think they're brave enough to tell me that. You know, Haley is definitely inspired by people in my life. And the funny thing is, they don't realize it. You know, I had a former friend who was like, I read that book, oh my God, Haley was so horrible. I hope nobody ever did you like that. I'm like, look in the mirror. You know, it was for me, it was like the girl who, when we had a Christmas party, I'm giving all my business out, but we had a Christmas party when I was in college, and my professor had this pile of gag gifts under the tree, and we could pick whichever one we wanted. And I picked one, didn't know what it was. I opened it. It was a prescription drug book and a water gun. And she goes, oh my God, the black girl from the hood got the gun and the drug book. Ha ha ha. So that's my way of addressing that, because I didn't do what I wanted to do that day. It was through this character. But honestly, and I'm probably going to make somebody mad, and I honestly don't care, Haley is honestly a lot of white feminists. Intersectional. Look, I could go into a whole discussion about that, but it's that person who only sees their issues. What about my issues as a black woman? Are they not valid? So with Haley, I wanted to address that. And I wanted to show someone, yeah, she's a feminist, nothing wrong with that, but can you still look at Star and see what she's going through and fight for that just as much as you fight for your issues? Can we have that? So with Haley, Haley was definitely a way to get at a couple of different folks. And they still haven't realized it.
Hi.
Hi.
I mean, I came late, so I wonder if I'm asking the same question. But how do you feel about the casting for the movie compared to the book?
I knew this was going to come up. I'm just going to address it. There's been a lot of discussion about specifically Amandla Stenberg being cast to play Star when Amandla looks so different from the girl on the cover. I want to explain this. First of all, yes, colorism is real. Hollywood does have colorism stuff. Here's how this happened, though. Amandla was cast almost 2 years ago now. And when Amandla was cast, I was still editing the book. I had not even written a description for the character Star, because I write descriptions, physical descriptions last. There was not even a cover for the book, so there was nothing for them to look at and say, oh, well, this is how the character looks, this is what we need. At the time, Amandla had just come out with that video, Don't Cash Crop My Cornrows. And Amandla was so vocal about issues like this that it felt like the perfect fit. And people would say, well, why didn't you describe Star to look like Amandla or make them look? I don't write characters based on actors or actresses. Because something could have happened, Amandla could have dropped out. Then what? You know what I mean? So, and the cover is an artist's interpretation. I have no say on the cover. I think the cover is beautiful. But I'm also excited to see what Amandla does with this role. They are dedicated to it. They've been dedicated for 2 years now. When nobody knew anything about The Hate U Give, Amandla was out there pushing this book, talking about this book. Amandla was out there being vocal about this book and supporting this book. So I support them just as much as they support me. And I get it. I get it. I hear you. I hear the conversations. Trust me, I've been tagged in enough stuff on Twitter. I hear it. I hear it. And I'm not saying the conversations aren't valid, but in this case, this is how it came to be. Before Star had a description, before Star had a cover, Amandla was cast because Amandla was passionate about the same things that Star is passionate about at the end of the day. But that passion, I feel, is going to show on screen, and I'm excited to see what they do with the role. I absolutely am. So thank you. Thank you for being the person to ask. I knew somebody was going to ask, so thank you.
We probably have time for one more question. Thank
Hello.
you.
My name's Hank, and I'm new to the U.S. I've been.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry about the mess we have right now.
I've been living in Japan, where the Black Lives Matter argument and discussion isn't as prevalent. And I wanted to ask where people like me are allowed to stand, and if we're allowed to be on the outside looking in or the inside looking out.
We need you on the inside looking out. We need more people to stand with us. I often say, it's often said, I as a black person cannot solve racism in America because I didn't create it. It takes I'm not saying you created it, no. But it takes true allies stand with us. You can stand with us on it, and that's what it takes. It takes sometimes other people saying something. It takes other people standing alongside us sometimes. We need it. We need more voices helping us speak up because sometimes people just look at us and say, we're just complaining or we're making this up. We need more people to stand beside us and say, no, this is actually happening. We're not going to stand for it. So thank you for even wondering where you stand and for even trying to figure out what you should do. So I say shout along with us. Don't shout at us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Angie. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.